Kings are going to lose this game. They just took a full timeout. I don't know why. 117 to 110. And when Ryan and I were on at halftime, we talked about a few things. We talked about 3-point shooting. The Kings only had 5. They were 5 of 15 at the break. And we said that number's got to go up significantly. Well, it did not. As a matter of fact, when you look at the 3-point shooting in this game, all right, Sacramento just 28%. Minnesota, 45%, and then Timberwolves shooting 52% overall from the floor. Here's another stat that you're not going to like, and we talk about this all too often. Minnesota out-rebounded the Kings 44 to 35. All right? 44 to 35. Anthony Edwards, really good. Russell, first half, really good. 3-point shooting for Minnesota, really good. And for Sacramento, not good. There you have it. I don't know what else to say. Kings are going to start off this 7-game road trip with a loss against a team that played last night. All right? You're getting Minnesota on a back-to-back, and you lose this game. And I talked about this at halftime. The inconsistency of the Kings. 21 points in the first quarter, 38 points in the second quarter, 22 in the third, 29 in the fourth. They lose 117 to 110. I had the winning score of 119, but I thought it would be the Kings that would get 119. Minnesota had 117. And so Sacramento loses. They're now 27 and 21. Welcome to the post-game show. All right. Good message right here. The Wolves played bigger and better. No question. I mean, Edwards is really good. And the Kings did play bad defense. You know why? Because they always play bad defense. That's why. All right, Ryan in Sacktown. At halftime, I think we analyzed this pretty good. Said if the Kings only made 5 threes in the second half, they weren't going to win. What did they make? 4? There's your ball game right there. One of the
ball
big
game right there. Ball game right there, Grant. Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell outshot the Kings in 3-pointers. They had 11. The Kings had 9. Other thing, bench points. 26 points from the bench. Unacceptable. That cannot happen. So those are the 2 glaring black eyes for me coming out of this one.
Okay, so I always talk about trends, right? And this is for you and I on this YouTube channel. We are now, is this game 2 or game 3? I can't even remember. It's game
2.
All right. So we're now in this 5-game stretch. This is a really bad start to this 5-game stretch. Toronto was awful. Tonight was not very good. Now the Kings, Ryan, have lost 3 or 4 games. We talk about trends, right? They lost to Philadelphia without Embiid, without Harden. They beat Memphis, who didn't have Ja Morant and Steven Adams. I thought Memphis waved the white flag in the fourth. I said, people were making a big deal out of that. I said, I'm not making a big deal out of that. That game means nothing to me. Kings followed that up with a bad home loss and now a bad loss on the road to start off this trip. Should Kings fans be a little nervous right now?
Oh, I don't want to wave the red flag yet, but yeah, there is a hinge of being nervous there because this team is relying on shooting. That's the one thing that you can typically count on through this stretch of the season. And, the last 2 games, they've only put up 110 and then 95 and 110 tonight. And we're not seeing them find a way to win in other ways other than shooting the heck out of the 3 ball. So that's a worry. The other worry is adjusting to how they're being played on defense. It seems like teams are starting to find a little bit of a formula to slow down Sabonis, slow down Fox, or take one of the 2 out of the game. So they have to find a way to adjust. I don't know what that is. That's going to be up to Coach Brown.
Well, they're going to have a couple of days in Minnesota to think about it, a day off tomorrow, and then you play the same team that will be rested now. They weren't rested today, and I thought a split would be pretty much what you'd see with the Kings and Timberwolves, but I didn't think it would go this way because I figured the best chance of beating Minnesota would be in this game because they played last night.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Grant. Kings coming in a little bit fresher, and now we're going to see what the team's made of, honestly, and it's good for them. They need in three out of 4 that they've lost. They need to have a little bit of their back against the wall, and we need to see how they're going to bounce back.
All right, glad to have everyone here on the post-game show. Grant and Ryan, this is game 2 of our 5-game stretch. And anyone that makes a donation on the Super Chat will be eligible to join us in the
Yep.
6th game right here on YouTube. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of people are upset right now, but hello, Eduardo from Chile. But the bottom line is the Kings right now are not playing well. I'm just sorry. They're not playing well. We saw it against Philadelphia. Memphis, to me, doesn't count. They didn't play well against Toronto, and they didn't really play well tonight. So this is not the trend that you want, okay, when you are taking on a team that played last night and you have 6 more games on the road. I didn't watch the Kings telecast, so I can't comment on anything that Katie said. If Katie said the Kings are tired, she needs to look at the fact that the Kings didn't play last night and that Minnesota did. If anyone should have been tired, it was the Timberwolves. There's no reason for the Kings to be tired in any way, shape, or form.
No, especially not after the last game that they played. So, Grant, going back to should Kings fans be worried? I look at this box score, and I want you to look at it too.
Yep.
It's predominantly, it's not a bad box score, right? Other than the
No.
shooting, they get out rebounded. Okay, that's one thing. Turnovers, they only have 9, I think, and they played. Everything lines up. That's not a bad box, but the
Mm-hmm.
shooting. So that just tells me if we already are not going to play defense, this team needs to be spot on offense.
Yep.
And it's the 3 ball that's separating the team. That's really what it is.
Well, yes, and you and I and Jerry have talked about this a lot, okay? The Kings are a bad defensive team. Let's just call it the way it is. They're a bad defensive team. So on nights like tonight, when the 3 is not falling, they have trouble winning. It doesn't matter whether you're playing the best team in the league or you're playing a bottom-tier team or a middle-tier team. You're not going to win because the Kings have nothing else they can fall back on, and that's why I think this is not just a Kings trend, Ryan. This is a league-wide trend. Teams that win normally win because of the 3, and teams that lose normally lose because they didn't make 3s. There you go. And that's what happened tonight.
Yeah, exactly right, Grant. And, that's why the Kings are going to have to find those other ways. And, at this point, they're so far into the season. What are they going to do different on defense? Because they're going to have to do something. They have to do something.
Here's a great message right here. Who the hell are the Kings? I said the same thing an hour ago. I said the same thing 1 hour ago at halftime. And I've said the same thing on a lot of these shows, even after wins, okay? Because I always look at the big picture. I think you need to be so careful about making too much out of one game. Just like a lot of fans made a lot out of the Memphis win. That win meant nothing to me. Nothing. Not without Ja Morant and Steven Adams on the floor.
Right.
I look at games, whether they win or lose, and I look at how they play in those games and trends. And the trend that I'm seeing right now by the Kings, to me, is not a good trend. There are some alarming things that I'm seeing with this team. And their inability to play defense when they need to me, is the biggest concern. The second biggest concern, Ryan, is they get killed on too many games down low with physicality and rebounding. And that is something that Monty McNair needs to figure out and address either before the trade deadline or this offseason.
Yeah, it certainly is, Grant. And when you were saying, who are the Kings? And that was a great comment. The word that comes to mind to me is predictable. They are predictable. When you and I do these shows and we do halftime shows, what are the keys to the game going to be? It's always the same things. And and you see it every night. It comes down to the 3. We know there's not going to be defense.
Mm-hmm.
We know free throw shooting is going to be. Let's talk about the bench. More nights than not, we're not getting bench production.
No.
It's okay when it happens maybe once every 5-6 game stretch, but now it's a surprise when the bench puts up 50 points.
Well, you had Malik Monk tonight's the only one in double figures from the bench with 13. Metu had 7 in only 9 minutes. Mitchell had only 4 points in 18 minutes, and Lyles had only 2 points in 12 minutes. So there you have it. You're exactly right. Exactly right.
And for everybody that wants to go out and have Monty make a big trade, that's going to require giving up something that we can rely on, right? That's going to give up something in the core. So the question becomes, is this team good enough to
Yep.
make a run if they have that extra piece and they give up those
Yep.
pieces. Or are they
Hey,
better
we're
off
brought to
just going the way there?
Yep. We're brought to you also New Works Plumbing, Ryan. I want to talk about them for a minute, sackserviceplumbing.com. Call the number on your screen. Remember, they have 24/7 service. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com. Grant Ryan here on the postgame show. The Kings start off this road trip with a loss. And again, I'm seeing some alarming trends right now with this team. I know they've shown the ability this year to, turn it on and all of a sudden win 5 games in a row. And, but we're now looking at a little bit of a trend that I would not like if I'm a Kings fan. I'm not really liking what I'm seeing right now from this team. I think there's some issues that need to be fixed and fixed soon.
Yeah, Grant, I'm not liking what we're seeing either. I don't think a lot of people in the chat are liking what we're seeing, but
Mhm.
we've seen this all season where they started off the season very slow. They were 0-4, right?
Yep.
And we've seen in the middle of the season where they lose 2 of 3 and then they pop back and have a 5-game winning streak, 6-game winning streak, whatever. So, on that bright side, this is kind of in their, wheelhouse, I guess. It's in their genes.
Yep.
So I on the bright side, we know they can bounce back if they
Yes.
play together. So
Yep. All right. So now you have a day off. You play the same team coming up on Monday. You lose 117 to 110. Told you Minnesota's been playing better as of late. The Lakers are right now leading Boston in the 4th. Utah is leading Dallas. No Luka Doncic, so you got to figure the Jazz will probably win that game. The Pelicans lose again, 113 to 103. The Suns, they beat the Spurs. So, keep that in mind, when you look at all these scores in the West. But, right now the Kings need to just worry about themselves. They need to address some of the issues that are going on with the Kings. But this game tonight comes down to 3-point shooting. And now their record is 27-21. The Clippers won. They're 28-24, only a game back of Sacramento. Dallas is losing tonight. They're probably going to end up with 25 losses. The Pelicans lost. They're now 26-24. How about New Orleans? They've lost 7 in a row. They've lost 7 in a row. So,
yeah,
and the Clippers
it's
are
been a
coming on.
weird.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a weird year in the West. There is no doubt about that. The Clippers coming on, the Pelicans, they get Zion back. That's going to make a huge difference.
Yep.
But yeah, the Kings, like you said, 3-point shooting. That's the story of the game. And I saw somebody say we need to trade Holmes. Good luck. Sure. Do we need to trade Holmes? Yes. But have you seen his contract? What else are we going to have to give up to get something back?
Yeah, you're not getting players for free. I think that's the point
No.
we're all trying to make, So, again, the Kings lose, and there are, a couple of issues you can point to in this game, but plain and simple, it just comes down to 3-point shooting and rebounding. We always talk about rebounding. I didn't think Keegan Murray was very effective tonight, and again, he's a rookie, and we have to give him some latitude because I thought he played pretty well on the homestand, Ryan. He didn't play that well
great
tonight. Yeah.
No, he did not. But that's been the story of Keegan all year too. So when he gets in and he mixes it up, it helps the team out and it builds his confidence too. And he shoots that 3 ball a little bit better.
The West is very competitive. I think the word you're looking for, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, Easton, is the West good? And no, they're not very good. And one of the main reasons is injuries. Okay. I mean, the injuries to the teams in the West, like Phoenix and like New Orleans particularly, have dismantled their teams, completely dismantled them. All right. If you had a healthy Devin Booker and a healthy Zion Williamson and a healthy Anthony Davis, which you don't, things would look a lot different in the West. Conversely, if you didn't have a healthy De'Aaron Fox or a healthy Domantas Sabonis, the Kings wouldn't be in 3rd in the West. Okay. Remember, we're still talking about a team that has not had a bad injury. And Sabonis' injury is not bad because it hasn't affected the way he's played. So I don't count that as a bad injury. The Kings have had, I think, the fewest number of games missed due to injury of any team in the league. That needs to continue, or the Kings are going to be just like Phoenix and just like New Orleans, where they're going to have trouble winning games on a lot of nights. And Ryan and I have talked about this, and I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but I've run down the games after the All-Star break. The schedule for the Kings in the final 6 weeks of the season is brutal. All right. You better hope you're at full strength.
Yeah, Grant, even this stretch that they're in now, they're 11 of 14 on the road up until I believe February
Yep.
25th. So this could be a stretch that could really hurt them if they don't figure this out. But they have been a good road team. They're still over 500 on the road, and
Yep.
hopefully they can tweak it and make some damn shots.
Yeah, Sabonis does need help down low, and the guards do need to defend. The only guard that really defends on a consistent basis is Davion Mitchell, and he's not on the floor enough. And offensively, on too many games, he's like playing 4-on-5. I hate to say that, but that's just the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. He's not a liability on offense, but you're not going to expect much from him when he's on the floor.
No, and if you're defensively, that, and so you can play off him and help out other guys. I mean, it makes your defense much easier when Mitchell is not really that much of a factor offensively. So again, I'm not saying the Kings are out of the playoffs now. I'm just saying I'm seeing some things that I think Mike Brown privately would say he's a little nervous about. Okay, there you have it. All right. And Lydia, you just made a very interesting point. But here's the thing that Ryan and I are going to discuss. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Lydia? We have now seen the Kings play for almost 50 games. Okay? They're coming up on game 50 on Monday. They're not going to all of a sudden, you're not going to wake up, Lydia, and go, oh, gee, the Kings all of a sudden are a good defensive team. They're not going to be a good defensive team this year. They're not going to happen with me not knowing what they may do at the trade deadline. But based on this current roster, Lydia, they are who they are. Ryan just said that. The Kings have an identity. Their identity is two things: offense and inconsistency. That's their identity. Nobody ever, and here's the third identity: bad defensive team. Everyone in the league knows it. Mike Brown knows it. Mike Brown comes out after his post-game press conferences and just flat out says our defense is terrible. And guess what? Mike Brown's a defensive coach. Doesn't matter. You don't have defensive players. So this is what you have. If you don't win in a shootout on most nights, you are going to lose. Period.
Yeah, Grant. And when you play that style of ball, other factors come into play. Turnovers. This team hasn't been great about valuing the ball when you're playing high paced. Long rebounds. You got to be able to do that, and they're not. So that's what it is. That's what, and they don't have to be great on defense. They just don't need to be terrible, right?
That's right. Mike Brown does know, but here's the deal. This Kings team's not expected to win the championship this year. This is a really big year for this franchise and the strides that they've made. I think a lot of fans lose sight of that. The goal this year was to make the playoffs, no matter how you did it, whether it was you were a play-in team and you won like New Orleans did last year, or you're the 8th seed. Any playoff performance, not a play-in game, being a 1-8 team when the real playoffs start is a success. Even if you get swept in the playoffs, that is a successful season for this franchise. I think sometimes we lose perspective of what we're dealing with here. Then this offseason, Monty needs to get that other piece to fix the issues that we're seeing on most nights with this team.
Right. We see and we hear in the media, they're leading the Pacific Division, right? We see 3 seed. We see over 500, and now our eyes get bigger than our stomachs. And if they make the playoffs, that is a huge win. And Grant's right. It's not play-in, playoffs. But I've seen a few people here in the chat saying, this is really a 7-8 seed looking team. This really isn't looking like a 3 seed.
Well, they're not looking like a 3 seed, but again, I go back there. First of all, they're really not a 3 seed if you're really looking at the magnitude of a 3 seed. And the reason why I say that is the Kings, let's just call it the way it is. The Kings have benefited greatly by injuries on other teams. You just have to call it the way it is. Look at what Memphis is doing now. They've lost 5 in a row. Why? Well, they've lost a key member of their team in Steven Adams. Okay. The Kings haven't had to go through that. And again, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but if Fox or Sabonis, or I'll even put Harrison Barnes in there, gets hurt, but I'll put Sabonis 1, Fox 2. If either of those things happen, this team is not going to be third in the West for long. They've been fortunate, and you know what, Ryan? They've taken advantage of their opportunities. That's a positive. But I don't know if they're as good as their record indicates. Right now, as I said, I'm seeing some issues that would concern me. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, and hopefully they get cleaned up, Grant. They've got to get cleaned up soon. We're like you said, we're almost 50 into the season,
Yep.
so we'll see what they do.
All right. Again, Kings lose 117 to 110. And again, this same team, the Kings will play coming up on Monday. We'll be here as well at half and on the post-game show. Really not much else to add on this. I mean, there really isn't. The Kings need to play better, and they need to figure out a little bit of a rut. Appreciate the donation on the super chat. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
do enjoy all the feedback that we get. You know what? I don't know about this. They're third, okay? They're third, okay? I don't. Ryan just said this. I don't know how you rationalize that they're really a number 7 seed. Maybe
Well, the
they're not.
ration.
You know what I mean? I don't get that.
Well, Grant, the rationalization is if you're not a Kings fan and let's say this game's on NBA TV, they don't look like the third best team in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody said that is the third best team in the conference, you'd say you're crazy. So traditionally at the macro level, they look like kind of the bottom end of the playoff teams, the way that they've been playing the last 4 games. That's what I think people are trying to get across. And I kind of get that, but I understand what you're saying too, Grant.
I don't buy into mental fatigue. There's 30 teams in the league. They all play 82 games. So that's just nonsense. I could see them having a bad road trip. Attrition, why would they have attrition? I mean, they're I don't necessarily see that. They just had what, 3 days off?
Yeah.
Okay. And the broadcast, Katie's saying the Kings are tired. Someone said on the chat line, again, I didn't watch the game with the Kings, so I can't comment on that. How could the Kings be tired? They just had a couple days off. Minnesota played last night. Come on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Let me answer this real quickly.
Yeah.
What I said what I meant by not a legit 3 seed is when you look at the standings in the NBA, all right? In the Western Conference. And thank you very much, JR, for wanting me to clarify that, and I will. All right. Let's look at the teams that are around Sacramento. The Clippers are better than Sacramento. Can we agree on that? Can we agree that the Clippers, anyway, if you were a general manager and I said you can take this roster or that roster, you're taking the Clippers. Okay.
Yes.
The reason why the Clippers are currently behind the Kings is because of injuries. So I'll put the Clippers at 3 and I'll put the Kings at 4. Okay. Dallas, to me, is not better than the Kings. I know they have Luka Doncic, but overall, I like the Kings team better than Dallas. Dallas is 5th. New Orleans. I will say that when New Orleans is healthy, I'll probably take them over Sacramento. So I will now put the Kings down to 5, and I'll put the Pelicans ahead of them. All right? The Suns, to me, are a very mystifying team because DeAndre Ayton looks so unhappy, right? DeAndre Ayton, you don't know what you're going to get from him, but Devin Booker. Other than okay, and again, I'm looking at the Warriors. Do I like the Warriors roster better than the Kings? Yeah, but here's the deal with the Warriors. How is a team with that roster, even with some injuries, 6-18 on the road? Like, I can't put them ahead of the Kings because of their road record. I know they're really good at home. So maybe the Kings aren't a 3 seed, like I said. But are they all the way down to 7? You play 82 games for a reason. I think the Kings right now are a legitimate 6th seed in the conference. And by legitimate, I mean if all the teams were healthy, I think the Kings would be right around 6. I don't know if I'd put them as 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. But, Ryan, that's why you play 82 games for. We're going to find out.
That's right.
There are a lot of games left. I'm not going to just all of a sudden forget how well the Kings have played on most nights to this point. I'm not going to just say, well, gee, they've lost 3 or 4. I'm going to forget what they did in November and December. No, I'm not going to forget that. Those games count.
Yeah, every game counts. We talked about that when they had their first bad loss against Charlotte. We're like, hey, we're going to look back at this. Unfortunately, there's been a few more of those. I agree with you with 6. Golden State, that one's interesting, Grant, because the Kings aren't good at home. Golden State's bad on the road. Kings are bad at home. So, it's give and take. But
I agree.
We'll see what they do, where they go from here. But would you say, Grant, there has been more good than bad this season for this
Absolutely.
inconsistent team? Exactly.
Absolutely. Not even close.
Exactly.
Not even close. And this, you see, you're looking at this, in my opinion, Donald, the wrong way. No, you have less attrition. You know why? Because you haven't had any injuries. So
Right.
you haven't had your other players have to play more minutes like you have on other teams. That's attrition. There's no attrition on the Kings. All right? Not at all. I mean, relatively speaking, no. And I understand what fans do. And I've been doing this for a long time. When things aren't going well, fans always try to find excuses to make themselves feel better. You always look at little things that have nothing to do with anything. Okay. Like if Katie said on tonight, the Kings are tired. It's an excuse. They're not tired. They just had 3 days off. You look at things and you come up with things that sound good to make you feel better, and you can rationalize losses better. I don't do that. All right. The Kings have been healthy. They've had their full roster for pretty much the entire season, and it has greatly benefited them to the 3rd seed in the West. They're not tired. They don't have attrition. Okay. They're just like every other team in the league. All right. And here's the other deal about tired. Were the Kings not just home for a full week? Right? This team's not tired. They just were home. They just had 3 days off. They're not tired. So I'm sorry. Don't go there. Don't look for excuses. Ryan and I, we talk about this team every day and every night. We're not right 100% of the time, okay? But I would say this Kings team, here's what we know. We know that they're a very good offensive team, arguably the best in the league. We know that.
Mhm.
Not debatable. Number 2, we know they are a bad defensive team. Everyone in the league knows that. Not debatable. Third, when they make their threes, they're going to win most of the games they play. There you have it.
Yep.
Don't look at attrition. Don't look at what other just look at those 3 things and say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to, like Lydia wants to be a better defensive team tomorrow. Not going to happen. This is who you are. Ryan keeps on talking about this all the time. We know their identity. Let's not change their identity this year. You might be able to change it in the offseason, but you're not going to change it this year. So live with it.
Yeah, exactly. We just have to embrace it as fans at this point. And Mike Brown has to do things to bring the best of those traits out in those players, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
identity. Don't focus so much on D at this point. And for everybody talking about the trades, Grant, there's not name one player realistically that's going to come in and make this defense go to a top 10 defense in the league. There's not one, because there's 4 other guys on the floor that aren't great defenders.
That's right.
So, it's something you got to handle in the offseason. So, emphasize your positives and try to, mitigate your negatives as best as possible.
No, you know what I think? If you guys are playing a lot of minutes, you tell them not to practice the next day. That's what we're making way too much out of minutes in games. All right. Stop babying these guys. All right. Stop it. Stop
Yeah,
babying these guys. Incredible.
and Mike Brown's been really consistent playing an 8, 9, sometimes 10 player rotation.
Mm-hmm.
His substitutions are pretty much right on the clock every game. So there's nothing to that. I only think of the Utah game, Grant, right, where the starters played
Mm-hmm.
heavy minutes. That's the one game I can think of.
Yep. Rick Adelman's right. He said, get defensive players. We'll give you a good defensive team. But guess what happens? If you get good defensive players, you're probably not a good offensive team. So
Right.
as Ryan talks about, you have to have a balance. And Ryan's spot on. You don't really need to be a good defensive team. You need to be adequate. You need to be able to play average defense. If you play average defense with a great offense, you're going to be a really good team. The Kings don't even play average defense. That's the problem.
Yep. And the only example I can think of ways they can kind of embrace who they are on defense is you don't see them. Did they have a block shot tonight? I know they didn't have one at halftime, but they're trying to take
Go ahead.
they're trying to take charges all the
Mm-hmm.
time, which is a good thing. If they can't block shots, that is the next best thing. So a lot of guys in the league don't take charges. So it's finding those little things, but just don't be terrible. Just be,
Yep.
average.
You know what? I don't have the box. I can't bring it. I don't think they had a block shot, but even if they did, it would only be one. So,
Right.
and then listen, we keep on uh, as we get further into the season, you who you are and your identity even becomes more and more cemented, right? I mean, you don't really know in the first 10 games, then you get a better idea after 20 games, then you get to 30 games and you're like, okay, this is who the Kings are. Well, now as we're in 50 games on Monday, you are not changing the identity of this team unless you make an amazingly crazy trade before the deadline. And Ryan, I don't think the Kings make a crazy trade before the deadline. I could see them adding, but I don't think it's going to drastically change the face of this team for this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Grant. And I mean, we're talking about accentuate your positives. Who's to say they don't try to improve the offense with a trade and improve or not improve the defense?
Right. Well,
Because
it's a
that's
great
their
point.
strength. But a trade's not going to matter at this point. I think you roll with what you got. If something falls in
Yep.
your lap, then okay.
Yep. Hey, want to tell you about Bennett's 2 locations currently. Another one. Oops, sorry, wrong one. New Works Plumbing. We love you too. But
Yeah, we
Bennett,
like them too.
we do. Bennett's, Roseville and Sacramento. Ryan and I had our big event there in September, and it's on Eureka and Lead Hill Boulevard. You have the location at Howe and Fair Oaks, formerly the Bandera location. They're both great, and you're going to love the food. Prime seafood and steaks. I love the redfish. The salmon is really good, but I love the bone-in ribeye there. It's phenomenal. They have the porterhouse. They have great cuts of fillets. They have prime New York. They have hanger steak. The menu is diverse. I'll tell you, they have phenomenal salads too. So there's something for everyone. I know Ryan talks about the brunch as well. On Sundays, there's, again, something for everyone at Bennett's. You'll love it. And they are a big Kings supporters. So get down to Bennett's. 2 locations for you with a third coming this spring to Rockland.
Heck yeah, you will not be disappointed.
No, you will not.
You will
That is
not.
for sure. All right. Again, the Kings lose 117 to 110, and the Lakers are up 104 to 102 with 18 seconds left in Boston. They would be able to sweep Boston for the year. They just beat Boston in
That'd be
LA.
incredible.
So, all right. So, is it as simple then on Monday? Make threes, or what are the other adjustments? Because listen, the backcourt of Minnesota destroyed the Kings backcourt tonight.
Yeah, I think that you probably make threes. You already said it. You probably got to find a combination with the bench. You can't get 26 points from your bench. Period. End of story. Davion, obviously, best defender coming off the bench, as we've said, but they've got to find some type of different combination to speed that up and deal with the guards.
Yep.
Gobert, not super impressive to me tonight. I think that the Kings have opportunities for inside out basketball. So threes and let the rest open up, and don't be terrible on defense. That's
Yeah.
what it comes to.
It sure does. It sure does. So again, the final tonight, the Kings lose, and not a great first quarter, really good second quarter, not a good third quarter. And then they tried to make that comeback after being down 10, but being down 10 on the road with 5 or 6 minutes left is not a good recipe to get a win on the road. You're not going to win a lot of games doing that. So let's see what happens. Same 2 teams coming up on Monday, and the Kings, will hopefully make some adjustments on their off day tomorrow. I'm sure Minnesota as well. But again, these are huge games for Minnesota, who have had a really, by their standards and comparing them to last year, a disappointing season. Minnesota can get right back in the thick of things in terms of catching Sacramento with a win on Monday. If they win both these games, they're going to be feeling really good about themselves.
Yes, they will. I mean, we're talking about a team that went all in the offseason. They are all in. So they've got to make something of the squad that they have. And I did catch one thing that came up on the broadcast tonight. It was, do the Kings have a target on their back? And you and I have talked about this already. They've had a target on their back for a while. So this isn't the old Sacramento Kings. Oh gosh, we got to play them 48 minutes, whatever, and win. This is like, okay, we can build momentum off this team. And so Minnesota is a perfect example of that, where they're playing without one of their best players. They start building some wins, get 2 up here. Who knows? Who
Yep.
knows? So
Lakers have the lead 105-104 with 4 seconds left. Again, with Anthony Davis coming back, they're 23 and 26. But if they were to stay healthy, again, you just can't really count them out. But that game's not over. All right. Giving up 117 is not terrible. It's not good. It's not terrible, but it's not good. I don't know what else to say.
It's the manner in which it's given up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's, you know what? You're absolutely correct. 100% correct. So again, we'll be on at halftime of the game on Monday and then after the game as well. The game is tied with the Lakers and the Celtics now. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy the football games tomorrow, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Everybody have a great weekend. All right. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you, buddy. Very interesting. Remember when Draymond made a comment about it being difficult to play versus the Kings because they weren't deemed worthy. Suddenly, the Kings can score a lot, but still can't defend. Yeah, I mean, again, that's who they are, Absolutely. There you have it. All right. They want to know when I am launching pregame, maybe after the All-Star break. All right. It's all about the schedule and the other shows that I do, but, certainly. All right. Certainly. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we love it when you can join us right here on If You Don't